Good afternoon and welcome to the News Roundup for Friday, October 10, 2025. I'm Bill Thomas, and here's what's happening right now. Buyer beware. The head of America's largest bank issuing a dire warning about a possible upcoming crash of our stock market. Regime change. Defense experts now saying the Trump administration's military buildup in the Caribbean could ultimately be aiming to depose Venezuela's evil dictator. And drill, baby, drill. Lawmakers are pulling the plug on a number of last-minute Biden-era policies in order to kickstart critical energy production on public lands. Also, a massive explosion at a bomb factory in Tennessee leaves 19 people missing and presumed dead. And oddly, our 22-year-old war with Iraq has officially now come to an end. All this and much more coming up right now on the Big Roundup. We have so much to get to today, and we begin with an ominous warning, which is coming from one of America's top financial gurus, who now thinks there's a very good chance that the U.S. stock market is going to collapse, and in the very near future. Jamie Dimon, who heads up our country's largest bank, J.P. Morgan Chase, admitting he's extremely worried that a serious market correction is on the way and predicting that the value of stocks could plummet within the next half a year. Dimon says that right now, a whole bunch of global factors are combining to create a terribly risky atmosphere of uncertainty, among them spending cuts, the world's current geopolitical climate, and what he calls remilitarization all over the planet. Goes on to say these things are adding up to produce a number of significant financial issues, which global leaders are not sure how to handle, warning that right now, people everywhere should be much more concerned than normal about what's going on. Dimon admits he's far more worried about a market crash than other Wall Street hotshots. However, he's far from alone in his appraisal. Earlier this week, both the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and the Bank of England issuing similar alerts about global economic uncertainty, with the bank pointing to the possibility of an AI bubble, something everybody is talking about. Meanwhile, adding fuel to the fire, a new report from the financial firm Moody's says right now 22 states from coast to coast are either in or on the brink of a recession. Drink that in. That report blames tariffs, job cuts, and immigration for the downturn, and saying that in New York and California join their ranks, the country is going to be in very big trouble. Final thoughts, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown. You know, in the old days, they used to say, when E.F. Hutton talks, people listen. Hutton was an investment guru, and he was the go-to guy regarding finances. Today, when Jamie Dimon talks, people listen even closer, and this guy, he knows what is what. Dimon makes a number of good points. The world is changing minute by minute, and nobody really knows what's going to happen next. AI is generating a lot of answers, but the questions which the new technology poses can't be answered yet. And that should give us all pause for concern, if you know what I mean. And I imagine you know what I mean. You know, wars are being waged, dangerous international alliances are being forged, and the world appears to be getting more and more complicated to navigate. Tariffs have taken hold, and to hear the president talk, these tariffs will absolutely benefit the U.S., but right now it's a bit too soon to come to any authentic conclusion. You got to wait and see. Here's the bottom line. The world right now, it's in a state of flux. But in reality, market crashes are kind of like earthquakes. They're going to happen. You just don't know exactly when they're going to happen, so you got to be prepared. By the way, in general, the markets are doing rather well. However, the Dow ended the week today at just under 45,500, and that's close to a 900-point loss. That has got to sting. Are your thoughts and your comments on Mr. Dimon's dire prediction? Drop us a note, and we're at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. I should have sold off my Enron stock a lot sooner. Hey, Producer Davey, anybody commenting on Dimon mania or the terrible stock market situation today, losing close to 900 points?
Oh, yeah, Bill. You know, hit people in their wallets, and they're bound to chirp up.
Yeah, those 401ks are kind of dipping down a little bit today. So who's up first?
Okay, Bill, we start today with Wendy from Upper Dublin, Pennsylvania.
Hiya, Wendy. What's on your mind?
She says, if this guy says the market's going to crash, I believe him. All signs point to him being correct.
Well, he's saying in the next half a year, and it might be a year, and it might be 2 years, but that's like saying something terrible is going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years. Something always terrible is going to happen. You just don't know exactly when. So I think he's sounding the alarm a little bit early. But I appreciate you checking in. And David, who's up next?
Here's a different view from Bob in Bakersfield, Bill.
What you got, Bob?
He says, in my opinion, the market is doing just fine, and all this talk of an AI bubble is complete nonsense.
I don't know. I'm listening to it every day. I'm a little bit concerned about it. It's AI seems like the big hot ticket right now. But this Jamie Dimon, you really do have to listen to what he says. He's a bright guy, but he's kind of stating the obvious. It's like making the bold prediction that a week from next Tuesday, the sun will rise in the east. The sun pretty much always rises in the east. And the markets, they'll always suffer corrections or the occasional crash. Best bet, invest conservatively and invest intelligently. Go slow, man. All right, change things up just a smidge now and turn our attention to a potential new target in President Trump's escalating military campaign against violent drug-dealing criminal gangs in the Caribbean. A bunch of defense experts surmising that right now the president is actually using the offensive as an excuse to strategically move around his chess pieces, position U.S. forces off South America, and eventually force Venezuela's dictator Nicolas Maduro to resign. They say the president's ultimate goal is to use a form of gunboat diplomacy to loosen the Venezuelan leader's grip on power and ultimately force him to hand his country's reins over to someone else. They also say that in the end, a ground invasion, highly unlikely, but U.S. missile strikes against the Maduro regime, they are an authentic possibility. One military expert says the Trump administration's approach shows they're willing to attack the Venezuelan dictator and that they're already laying the legal groundwork to do so. He also says that right now, American forces are in position to target Maduro's regime with devastating missile strikes, and all without risking the lives of any of our military personnel. Another expert points out that Venezuela's criminal regime makes its money by controlling the drug racket. Yeah, they're in on the routine. Says that by targeting the cartel infrastructure, the U.S. military can strip Maduro of his cash cow and force the regime to crumble from within. That's pretty smart thinking. Right now, the U.S. has 3 destroyers, a nuclear-powered sub, and a whole bunch of stealth fighter jets hanging around the neighborhood. They have around 10,000 troops stationed throughout Latin America as well. Meanwhile, earlier this year, the Trump administration raised the bounty on Maduro to $50 million for narco-terrorism, and they continue to maintain their operation is aimed at protecting our homeland from the scourge of illegal drugs. Final thought, this is the News Roundup Lowdown. You know, there's a lot to tend to when you're the President of the United States, and 47 is very effectively tending to it all. From domestic issues to global issues and everything in between, Donald Trump is attacking a number of crises tragically ignored by previous administrations, and he is getting the job done. In particular, with regard to our nation's war on drugs, he's changing up the game plan by taking the fight to the enemy as opposed to waiting for the enemy, the cartels and their deadly drugs, to come to us. That's kind of the old school way. We've already attacked and destroyed their drug-running boats in the Caribbean just off the coast of Venezuela. Our military presence at sea and in the air in that region, it cannot be ignored. And to pour some salt on the wound, the U.S., as we just pointed out, has put a $50 million bounty on Venezuela's dictator leader, Nicolas Maduro. Now, the White House will continue doing all it can to stop that nation and its criminal thugs from bringing their deadly poisons right here to the U.S. And in time, there will most likely be a regime change in Venezuela as well. You know, until that time, the pressure is on. Illegal and deadly drugs coming from that country are what some would consider a national security threat. And Maduro may be leading his nation into a war, which that nation can sadly never win. Drop us a note now with your thoughts and comments, and you'll catch us at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. The war on drugs, Davey. We're all in, and what are folks saying?
Okay, Bill, let's start with Jackie in Houston, Texas.
Hiya, Jackie. What's cooking?
Jackie says Trump is using the military like his own personal army. He should leave Venezuela alone and stick to going after his other political enemies in the U.S.
Well, listen, he's got a lot of enemies here and abroad, but no, he's not using the military as his own little plaything. Venezuela is a real serious threat to the United States of America. Now, listen, something to think about with regard to this war on drugs. Now, really think about this. The White House says that drugs flowing here into the U.S. have led to, or at least contributed to, more than 100,000 overdose deaths in recent years. Look, this is a life and death crisis. It has to be dealt with immediately. It has to be dealt with harshly, and in large part because previous administrations didn't deal with it. Wait till you have a friend or a loved one, a family member, a colleague, somebody you work with. Wait till you watch them die as a result of drugs that were coming in from Venezuela or from anywhere. This is a serious issue that the President of the United States takes more serious than any former president, and the war on drugs will be fought and it will be won with this administration. All right, switch things up just a bit now. Turn to Capitol Hill, where lawmakers have just handed President Trump another enormous victory in his goal to drill, baby, drill, and increase our nation's desperately needed energy and mineral output. Republican lawmakers and the Senate voting to repeal a number of federal land restrictions, which were put in place at the tail end of the Biden administration, thus opening the door to increased mining, drilling, and more in a trio of western states. Both the Senate and the House have now thrown their support behind the president's desire to open up formerly protected public land in Alaska, Montana, North Dakota as well, and allow for the extraction of a whole bunch of critical minerals, including copper, cobalt, also gold, and a bunch more. Get back to the gold. I think gold now, Davey, correct me, $4,000 an ounce. Is that right?
And heading up, Bill.
Yeah, keep digging for that gold. And the black gold as well. President Trump says all these minerals, they are desperately needed by the U.S. as we race to compete with China when it comes to the development of AI, good old artificial intelligence, also vital for a bunch of other modern technologies, including cars, electronics, and military defense systems. This is serious business. During his time in office, former President Joe Biden blocked a number of energy projects which were approved during President Trump's first term. However, the timing of some of Biden's actions at the end of his term allowed for Congress to review and then vote to overturn them. Meanwhile, the Trump administration also pulling the plug on another of Biden's pet projects, this one a gigantic solar energy farm, which was scheduled for development on federal land just outside of Las Vegas, Nevada. If constructed, that clean energy project would have been one of the largest solar energy plants in the entire world. Final thought, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown. A country which is dependent upon foreign nations for its energy supply and for its critical minerals is a country that will be left weak, vulnerable, and unfortunately uncompetitive. Alaska, Montana, North Dakota as well, they are rich in these resources which are key to our nation's safety, security, and to our energy independence. It was at the end of the Biden administration when these lands were locked up, but clearly opening up territories in these three states critical to our nation's security and our sustainability. And a side note, opening up these areas for mining creates more good-paying jobs, generates tax revenue, and keeps our country on the right track. Nothing in life is ever perfect, but that tired old argument that drilling and mining is going to generate a threat to wildlife or somebody's hunting or fishing or somehow harm the environment and all the rest, it's just a game to stop the U.S. government from planning ahead, ensuring our safety and guaranteeing our nation's security. Producer Davey, anybody chiming in on any of this at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com.
Oh, yeah, Bill. People have lots to say, so let's start with John in Montana.
What do you got, John?
And he said Biden's green policies left us playing catch-up. Now Trump is fixing his mess and getting us back on track. MAGA forever.
Yeah, absolutely. We have resources there. We're going to mine for those resources intelligently and responsibly. No one's against green energy, but look, this was already put in motion during Trump's first term. Biden put the kibosh on it. Now we're going to unkibosh that and get right down to business. Appreciate you checking in. And Davey, who's up next?
Okay, Bill, here's a bit of a different view from Jill in Portland, Oregon.
Hiya, Jill. Welcome to the program.
She says stopping green energy projects is backwards and short-sighted. China can power their AI with the largest solar farm in the world while Trump digs for coal. What a joke.
Yeah. Well, listen, in life, there's always going to be a give and a take. The White House opening up land in these three states, there will always be some level of oversight. All parties involved are going to do all they can to protect the environment. So don't be picking on them for trying to drill for coal or dig for coal or drill for oil or do any of the mining. All the people who live nearby and all while working to ensure that we remain self-reliant, a self-reliant country, this is all very critical to our nation's forward progress. It's absolutely essential. All right, some additional headlines we are keeping a very close watch on here in the News Roundup newsroom. A massive explosion annihilating a munitions plant in rural Tennessee. Authorities saying 19 people are now missing. All are feared dead, and the cause of that blast right now is under investigation. And moving along with a couple of international headlines to share with you as well. And first up, the Israeli military confirming that a ceasefire is now in effect throughout the Gaza Strip as their forces begin to pull back. Tens of thousands of Palestinians are heading north to go back to what's left of their homes, and the U.S. prepares to send a couple hundred troops to the area, all to assist in helping to keep the peace. In Ukraine, a massive Russian drone and missile attack destroying critical energy infrastructure, plunging the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv into darkness and prompting calls for the U.S. and Europe to step up their defense efforts. And back here, Washington, Congress voting unanimously to repeal the resolution which authorized the 2003 invasion of Iraq. And that officially closes the chapter and ends that war once and for all. Just amazing that 22 years have screamed on by. Skipping along now to the Nobel Peace Prize, this year's award going to Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado for her work promoting democratic rights for her people. Machado dedicating her prize in part to President Trump for his decisive support of her cause. So not exactly a win for 47, but look, he at least got an honorable mention. That accounts for something. And turning now to the world of business and a quick peek at a couple of stories which are currently making waves in finance, also in trade, and more. President Trump announcing an additional 100% tariff on imports from China for their policy regarding rare earth elements and saying that he no longer sees any point in meeting with Chinese leader Xi Jinping at all. The aggressive move threatening to escalate a global trade war and wreak havoc with the economy of the entire world. Moving along, Amazon planning to launch a number of innovative prescription drug kiosks at a handful of primary care medical clinics in L.A. They say the groundbreaking service that'll allow patients to get hold of their needed medications right away, no longer standing in those long lines at the pharmacies, and that they're looking to expand the service down the road. Starts in L.A. and then it goes nationwide. Another brief headline to share, the post office saying they'll be closed on Monday in honor of the Columbus Day holiday. In case you forgot, yeah, it's coming right up. They say they'll only be delivering Priority Mail Express items and that all of their other reliable services will return on Tuesday. What do we always say about the post office, Davey? What do we always say?
I don't know, Bill. What do we say?
The post office is always on time, no matter how long it takes. And now it's time for a quick look at the lighter side of news. Here's the skinny. A recent little traffic jam in China left thousands of people, probably hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people, miserable, trapped, totally gridlocked for up to 24 hours on the old expressway. The massive standstill involving millions of cars returning from a week-long holiday took place on a 36-lane highway, with all of those 36 lanes converging into just 4 lanes as they approached the toll booths. You know, they do the same thing here in Southern California, particularly here in L.A. The freeways are too narrow. Every now and again, they spend hundreds of millions of dollars. They add 1 lane for a short stretch, and then that lane comes to an end, and then everybody has to merge back into that right lane. You ever seen that, Davey?
I have seen that, Bill. It's very aggravating.
It's very aggravating and a waste of money and a waste of resources. Anyway, the enormous congestion lasted several days. Some folks saying they were completely stranded in the mess. They had no way out. They also say that from now on, they're planning to carry food, water, blankets, and even a portable toilet with them whenever they go on those long road trips. Holidays, yeah, they're great, and as a general rule, getting to your destination, yeah, it's half the fun. But going home, it gets mildly complicated. And here's the deal. When the journey home requires you to bring food, water, blankets, and a portable commode, you might want to kind of rethink the adventure. No one wants to drive down the interstate, Davey, with a porta potty in the back seats. Now, this traffic jam, yeah, pretty brutal, but it actually gets worse. And check this out. This record-setting traffic conundrum also in China, and this one from about 15 years ago. Back in 2010, the most famous and longest traffic tie-up in the history of the world. This one went on for 12 days, stretched over 60 miles on China's national highway G110. And David, what do I always say when traffic is bad on China's G110? What do I always say?
I don't know, Bill. What do you say?
I always say people should take the G109. It's right next to the 110, and it's usually wide open. You got to plan ahead a little bit. All right, tons of folks, yeah, they get stuck in traffic every day because they live too far from where they work. But that's all about to change as shopping malls, just like the Twin Pines Mall in the Back to the Future movie, yeah, they're turning into houses. And here's what's up. America's cherished shopping malls may be on the way out, but they're definitely not going down without a fight. You know, right now, a number of empty malls throughout the U.S., they're in the process of being converted into residential housing. And some realtors say this may be, in fact, the wave of the future. They say that turning unused malls into apartments could help deal with our country's housing shortage, especially in hard-hit areas. You got Florida, New Jersey, some other states as well. They also say the only thing stopping it from happening more often are local zoning rules and high construction costs. Meanwhile, some other people argue that converting malls into homes, it's a waste of time. They say the deal can cost a fortune, and they argue that in the end, it might just be better to tear the whole thing down and begin again from scratch. Now, I got a real problem with this. I don't mind building new houses, condos, apartments, and all the rest, but don't tear down that great American institution, the nearby mall. Now, Dave, if they tear the malls down, I won't be able to do my Christmas shopping at Sears, May Company, or the Broadway.
Bill, those stores went out of business years ago, Bill.
Oh, I didn't know that. Then I won't be able to buy my stuff from Toys R Us or Mervyn's or Montgomery Ward.
Bill, where have you been? Those stores are long gone, man.
Circuit City, Radio Shack?
Gone.
I guess last time I went to a mall was back in 1993, and apparently things have changed just a bit. Hey, repurposed malls or mildly congested interstates, what are you thinking? And vent just a bit. newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. Are people concerned about this stuff, Davey?
So believe it or not, people do have a lot to say about this stuff.
Bring it on.
Here's one from Hank in Fargo, North Dakota.
Hiya, Hank.
Hank says, that's quite the traffic jam there. Reminds me of the time I visited Hollywood and spent more time in the car than seeing the sights.
Yeah, it can take you quite a while to go from one end of town to the other end of town anywhere in Los Angeles. The Hollywood Freeway, the famed Hollywood Freeway between the San Fernando Valley right over here and downtown LA right over here. That should take you about 8 to 10 minutes with a smoothly flowing freeway. It can take an hour and a half or even longer. And the legendary 405, the San Diego Freeway throughout Southern California, is always a grueling nightmare. I appreciate you checking in, and who's up next?
Okay, Bill, here's one directed at you from Val in Kansas City.
Val, bring it on.
She says, Bill, once upon a time, you were a traffic reporter, right?
Once upon a time, yeah.
What's the longest traffic jam you've ever been a part of?
Me personally being stuck in traffic, or is she saying me reporting on traffic?
That's her question. I assume she would like to know both.
Well, first off, for me, being in traffic, stuck in traffic, would have been on Christmas Eve several years ago. Don't remember the year, but traffic would move for maybe 10 or 15 feet and stop for 10 or 15 minutes and so on and so on. Also, maybe 10, 12 years ago, I drove from LA's Santa Clarita Valley near a place called Magic Mountain down to San Diego. That should be about a 2.5-hour run. That took me close to 7 hours. And then with regard to the biggest traffic jam I've ever observed as a traffic reporter flying around in airplanes and helicopters, it would happen every now and again. There was a high-speed chase. When it would come to an end at one point on the freeway, they would shut the whole freeway down. There would be a standoff, and those standoffs can literally last for hours and hours. Absolutely grueling. Hey, Davey, time for just one more, then the weekend is upon us.
Okay, Bill. Here's one from Richie the architect in Boston, Massachusetts.
What you got for us, Rich?
He says, turning malls into apartments is a complete waste of time.
Yeah.
Converting office buildings into housing is a much better idea.
Yeah, I think the malls have to go by the wayside. I know there's still a few around town. The big malls here in Southern California, most of them are gone. The few that are left, only a few stores remain open. It's kind of dreadful because when we were kids, Dave, you and I, the mall was the place to go. It was kind of a cultural thing. Everybody went to the mall, the movie theater, the food court, all the stores. So it's kind of sad. It's a generational thing, but I think the malls are a thing of the past. Anything else? Any other calls? Any other emails? Any points of curiosity for anybody? Or is that pretty much it?
Well, there's always more, Bill, but,
Well, I'll tell you what, I have a point of curiosity. I'll leave you with this one. This is a very important question for me because I see this all the time, Davey. This one deals with the barber pole in front of all the barber shops all across the country. This really bothers me. You know that red, white, and blue stripe? I don't know if we have a graphic of that, if we have a picture of that. That red, white, and blue stripe that starts at the bottom, goes up to the top. You've seen that, right?
Yeah, Bill. Everyone's seen that.
Now, up at the top, it disappears, but then more come from the bottom, but the bottom only has a 1/4-inch space. They can't store all those red, white, and blue stripes at the very bottom of that barber pole. Where are the red, white, and blue stripes coming from? That's what I want to know, Davey. Fill us in.
Okay, Bill. That's a really good question, Bill. I'm going to take this weekend. I'm going to look into it. You just stand by.
Yes.
And next week we'll have an answer for you.
Look into it, make some phone calls, bring us back an answer. We'll talk about this more next week. For now, we're going to call it a wrap on the Aloha Friday edition of the Big News Roundup. But before we bust out, as we do each and every day here on the program, we share with you a very notable quote. And these profound words, they come to us today from Princess Diana. Princess Di, who said, "Carry out a random act of kindness with no expectation of reward, safe in the knowledge that one day someone might do the same thing for you." Princess Di, Diana Spencer, Princess of Wales, a member of the British royal family. She was the first wife of King Charles, the mother of both Prince William and Prince Harry, and she was a popular international icon who died far too young, way back in 1997. I remember the day very well. And now it is time for us to bust out. But before we do, don't forget the News Roundup motto. Before we get to the News Roundup motto, happy birthday to Engineer Jamie. The birthday is coming up this weekend. It's going to be a legendary birthday. It's going to be celebrated not only here in the News Roundup studios, but Davey, that birthday is going to be celebrated all over the world because it's Engineer Jamie. But back to our motto. Ask not what your podcast can do for you. Ask what you can do for your podcast. For example, simply subscribe to the program so you never miss even a single episode. And now our time is officially up. So have an awesome day today. Please stay safe. Let's all continue to watch out for one another. Have an awesome weekend. And with that, Engineer Jamie will ask you, the birthday girl, to please dim the lights. Let's gently fade to black. And we'll see you right back here on Monday afternoon.